The 2026 Chinese Grand Prix just took place. Let's go through how each of the teams and drivers have performed, starting with the worst performers of the weekend, ending with the highest scorer of the Grand Prix, starting with McLaren. So after the 2 years of pure dominance, their start to the new era of regulations has been painful. Lando Norris was decent in Australia. We knew coming into the season that they're definitely not going to be the class of the field. And it was proven in the first Grand Prix of the season. In the second Grand Prix of the season, things got even worse because it was like a reliability issue, but not in the sense of failure of a component. It was a reliability issue in the sense of a system integration challenge. What happened is it's not like a component of either of Lando Norris or Oscar Piastri's car failed, but it's like an electrical issue related to the PU and the power. Like they just couldn't even start the car, they couldn't power it on. And without the failure of a component, it's like something, it has to be related to the programming or the wiring. You messed up some connections somewhere. So that's the issue, it seems to be. And I think they're definitely going to fix it before Japan because, again, like I said, it's not like they need to redesign anything like a component on a fundamental level. They just need to figure out like a workaround for all of the, roadblocks that is preventing them from starting the car and sending the power from the power unit to the wheels. We move on. Really, really bad for Oscar Piastri. Last year, he must be beating himself up, like about last year. It seemed like he could have won the world championship. Then he made a series of mistakes. And unfortunately now, the start to 2026 is just horrible, especially for him. He hasn't even completed one full racing lap. Anyway, we move on. Aston Martin. Their car is just still a mess, obviously, if your engine development program is significantly behind the schedule in November 2025, then it's probably going to take at least half a season to get to a place where you have a reliable enough engine that can go the full race distance without trying to kill the drivers by giving them nerve damage or something. So, like, there is no point talking about these people. And by these people, I don't mean in like any kind of racial way. I'm just saying like the Aston Martin Formula One team. It's like things are bad and they will be for the foreseeable future. And when they will get better, we will see it. And obviously they have made some progress since the preseason testing till today. It's like the drivers can at least get the car out and do something. And Fernando Alonso is showing that the car has potential in the sense that his race starts are good. Now, I also know that Fernando Alonso said that, race starts are more about instinct and the feel and the ability of the driver, kind of like patting himself in the back. But also, you cannot do any of that if the car is shit. You know what I mean? Like, we know for a fact that Max Verstappen is like the best driver on the grid. Like that's a proven fact. Now, Max Verstappen is also struggling with race starts with these cars. It means that the car is fucked. It's not because like Max Verstappen is incapable, like suddenly forgot how to have good race starts. He had a really, really poor race start in the 2026 Chinese Grand Prix. We will talk about him when we will talk about him. But the point that I'm trying to make is Fernando Alonso saying that good race starts is primarily because of the driver's, feel of the situation and circumstantial awareness. It's not totally true. It is obviously the car has some potential in terms of reliability. They're cooked in terms of also like stability, energy generation wise and all that. It's like they're definitely cooked. It's not going to happen overnight and it's going to take a few iterations of the engine before they go to like the first, like the basic stock one. You know what I mean? Like that's the one they nailed. So a stable version, if you will. So like they're a long way away from that. So we will see with the break from Saudi Arabia and Bahrain, there is some hope that Honda will go ahead and make some nice developments. But I guess we will see in Miami if these guys are really going to go and make some progress or not. We move on. Audi. Just a kind of like a painful weekend in many senses. So first is Nico Hülkenberg had a good race. He was competitive. He was doing like this is his first Grand Prix of the new era of regulations. So he definitely was getting used to the ropes. He had a decent qualifying. And I think it was because of Gabriel Bortoleto spun around. I think that's why Nico Hülkenberg's run was compromised. But I don't recall that. But either way, he had a decent qualifying, out-qualified his teammate, who is typically has the upper hand in qualifying. Gabriel Bortoleto is really good in qualifying. But Nico's qualifying was decent this time around. And in race also, he was kind of holding his own. Yes, people were passing him. And yes, he kind of seemed at a time to lose the rear in like going into the hairpin. Like I think it was before his pit stop. So that makes sense. But Nico drove a really good race, and then he had like a 15-second pit stop for some reason. And I think it was, I think Jonathan Wheatley came out and said that it was a wheel gun failure. So, yeah, so that was horrible for him. But there are a lot of positives for the team. First is they know that the car is capable of fighting for points. You cannot deny that. So that's a great job by Team Audi. You see, when you design everything from scratch and these guys are only running their own engine, like Audi engine, kind of like Honda, is one of its kind. Only one team is using it. The difference is Honda's engine is shit, while Audi's is actually pretty decent, if you look at it. And it's really impressive that they have a car that can consistently fight for points. If it was not for the horrible pit stop of Nico Hülkenberg, and some issues with Gabriel Bortoleto's car, that really had a fighting chance of scoring some points, especially when so many people DNF'd. A lot of opportunities. So, yeah, looking really good for the remainder of the season, but I'm not sure how fast and how quickly they can progress. In terms of execution and operations, they seem to be in good hands. Their drivers are pretty good. You know, they're not unstable and they don't have any huge mega problems. And in terms of reliability, they look sorted as well. And this 1 month of break because of the Middle Eastern war is probably going to help them as well. So excited to see what these guys bring to Miami. I think in Miami we will see a lot of huge technological upgrades, not only outside but also inside of the car in terms of like the power unit, small upgrades to how the battery power is handled and all those things. So I guess we'll see after Miami. We move on. Cadillac. Now the thing is, these guys had a race where both of the drivers finished, so that's a positive. And they're faster than the Astons. We all saw the Fernando Alonso on board where he waved one of the Cadillacs goodbye as he was being overtaken. So that's also another positive. Now the thing is, there's a lot of potential in this team. Obviously, because first they have good drivers who can extract the maximum out of a midfield car. Second, they have the Ferrari power unit, which means they will be good at race starts if they can learn how to like unlock the maximum potential. Like I was saying, this team has a lot of potential. So if they get their shit together with like the energy management wise from the battery and get the system integrations right, like that alone will, you know, prop them up way ahead of, I would say, Williams and on the level of, I would say, Audi. Like they can get there if they continually push through the season. Now, obviously, that means that Williams also will have made some progress at that point. But it seems like Williams' team like built a car which has far significant problems compared to Cadillac. So Cadillac really do have a decent shot at clawing their way back up and scoring some championship points in this very season. So I guess we will see. It's going to be exciting times. I don't know who is going to score. Probably Sergio Perez, but we will see. We move on. Williams. Now, what a great drive by Carlos Sainz. I think he was actually towards the end of the race, I was rooting a little bit for Franco Colapinto. I wanted him to score the points and overtake Carlos Sainz, but I guess Carlos, with all of his skills, his ability to smoothly operate throughout the race distance, held his own, like banged out those perfectly good laps, decent laps with those worn out tires, and just remained calm and brought home together a couple of points. Now, this does not mean at all, in any sense of the way, that the Williams car is capable of scoring points consistently or even like in a predictable manner. You never know. If you have a race where they have too many DNSs and multiple DNFs and some crashes, and some people had slow and bad penalties, some people had slow pit stops and others had bad penalties. Esteban Ocon, we'll talk about him later. When all of these events happen and then you score a couple of points, okay, that makes sense in some time, like, okay, the Williams. But usually the Williams is a shit car. Their car has a lot of problems. And like I said, like I was talking a few moments earlier about Audi. Nico Hülkenberg had a very long pit stop. Gabriel Bortoleto couldn't even start the race. If those guys were in the race, I'm pretty sure they would have taken the points away from the Williams. Just saying. And Franco Colapinto had a crash with Esteban Ocon as well. Franco should have been ahead of Carlos Sainz, is what I'm trying to say. So the point that I'm making is, don't let this result of this weekend of a couple of points fool you into believing that these guys have any kind of pace or competitiveness. They don't. Unfortunately, it is what it is. This is what we have to deal with. After last year, I was extremely hopeful and like full of positive energy about Williams, because like they had a rebrand, they had some new sponsors, their drivers are good right now, and it's just gonna be a good start forward from 2026. And by the time we reach 2028, these guys will be fighting ahead for championships, consistently for wins and podiums and pole positions and things like that. That was a wet dream, but I don't think that's gonna happen anymore. Because look at the state of this team, man. Like, you are not even as good as the team who has designed their engine and chassis from scratch, that is Audi. And the rate at which Aston Martin is improving, and trust me, it doesn't seem like much because they can't even complete the races. But from, going from without having an engine at all to at least having an engine that runs the cars for a few laps, and the ability to have good race starts, saying something is all I'm gonna say. But Williams, man, these guys are just evolving backwards for some reason. Anyway, we move on. Red Bull. Well, it's official now, the car is fucked. Like, that is the most important takeaway for Red Bull. And again, not in the sense that their cars' individual components are poorly designed, because in Australia, Max Verstappen actually had a very amazing race. Started P20, finished P6 in Australia. Isaac Hadjar was also having a good race, but his engine blew up. But in China, they kind of just had a really horrible weekend in which the car was just total trash. For some reason, the Red Bull was an absolute shitbox to drive in the 2026 Chinese Grand Prix across all sessions. And like in the interviews, we heard a lot of things. So first thing Verstappen said was about the balance. The second thing he said was about DEG. Isaac Hadjar said something in his French accent which was difficult for me to understand. But primarily, what I believe is that the car is unstable. And in Chinese Grand Prix, because of the long straights and kind of like the open nature of the track, it can get windy, and that adds to the instability. And remember, this is the Max Verstappen who got pole position in the 2025 Azerbaijan Grand Prix, and the conditions were completely cooked, completely windy and crazy. So it's not like Verstappen forgot how to drive. He can handle an unstable car in windy conditions, dangerous conditions. But the car was so horrible, so unpredictable, corner after corner, and the deg was so high, the degradation, so it was getting very difficult for even the god of racing, Max Verstappen, to manage that car. So In that condition, if Isaac Hadjar is finishing in the points, making his way into Q3 and finishing in the points, big shout out to him. I think Red Bull are there and thereabouts of McLaren, maybe slightly ahead. And that's really about it. And this is the interesting thing about the 2026 Formula One season, because we are seeing the old rivalries. First, we are seeing Mercedes versus Ferrari. It's not really a battle because of the power advantage of the Mercedes, but at least in the corners, at least in the initial few laps of the race, it's beautiful to see Mercedes versus Ferrari. Second, we got Red Bull versus McLaren. And if you look at the overall results, they kind of are on the same page, because in Australia, one McLaren finished in the points and another one couldn't even start. Same thing happened for Red Bull, like similar risk. One of their drivers DNF'd in Australia and only one of them scored points. In China, Red Bull has one driver finishing the points, which is Isaac Hadjar, surprisingly. And Max Verstappen couldn't even finish the race because the car got so fucked. And then his dash went out and the power integration issues came up. Verstappen couldn't finish the race. They kind of are on a similar-esque level of McLaren. And I'm glad that this battle is happening in the midfield, because we have very few things to lose. We got Isaac Hadjar in the mix who can perform really well. And this is the biggest takeaway from Red Bull. If so far for the first two races of the 2026 Formula One season, they can take away some positives. There are a few. One of the biggest positives, I would say the biggest positives by far, is that Isaac Hadjar is competitive in that car. He's not that far behind of Max Verstappen. He's within a tenth and a bit, sometimes around like 2/10, but that's understandable because it's Max fucking Verstappen. And the fact that he qualified P3 in Australia ahead of Verstappen, and the fact that he finished in the points in China and he was, qualified right behind Verstappen in Q3, shows that Isaac Hadjar is actually pretty good. He can tame the Red Bull. He can go to toe with Max Verstappen. Yes, he is young and lacks a bit of experience. So obviously with age, I think he definitely is going to be faster. Maybe not over the course of one lap instantly, because, to get that, complete legendary level of skill in qualifying, especially on the level of Max Verstappen, is going to take a few years. But definitely in the terms of race pace management and over the course of race, he can definitely go faster and faster with every passing Grand Prix. So excited to see what Isaac Hadjar can do. They have a reliable engine. Their car is fast enough. The issues happen in China because, China can get windy, and also it's a punishing track because degradation is very high. But apart from these type of circumstantial issues, I think Red Bull are definitely around the pace of McLaren, and we will see a lot of battles between Verstappen and Norris, and Isaac Hadjar and PS2 will be in the mix as well. We move on. Racing Bulls. In 2025, when the campaign for Max Verstappen's fifth consecutive world title was not going according to the plan in the initial part of the 2025 Formula One season, I was thinking that, there will be races in which the Racing Bulls will score more points than the Red Bull. And it was always just about that Red Bull's Max Verstappen would inch ahead. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess this is never going to happen again. But it happened in 2026 in the second race of the season. The younger team, the smaller team, Racing Bulls, they have scored more points through Liam Lawson and Lindblad. We'll talk about Lindblad in a second. He had a really good season opener, but in this one, he kind of did not perform well. But Liam Lawson, man, he shut all of his haters up. After he kind of had a difficult first race of the 2026 Formula One season, a lot of people said that, Liam Lawson is he's getting cooked by another rookie. And I was one of those people who said that. But I'm happy to see that in the second race, he has scored points in all of the sessions. He scored points in sprint. He scored points in the main race. He started P14, finished P7. What a legendary performance by Liam Lawson. He finished ahead of Isaac Hadjar, who started ahead of him. Isaac Hadjar started P9. And the fact that Liam Lawson started from bumfuck nowhere and like went in all the way into the points, I mean, obviously a lot of people DNFing and all those things happening, all of that misfortune of others definitely helped Liam. But he drove a phenomenal race. And their battle is with Haas, but currently with Oliver Behrman, the way that guy is performing, he's beating the shit out of these guys. And the only way Racing Bulls can take the fight to Haas and beyond is if Arvid Lindblad needs to get his shit together. And he will. The thing is, let's not be too early to judge this rookie at his second race. Okay? And in China, that's exactly what has happened. He just had a rookie race. In Australia, he was surprisingly good. Good in qualifying, good in race. He managed it well. He lost out the battle to Oliver Behrman, but I think Behrman had more pace anyway. He was kind of like, taking his time and all that type of stuff. But that was that. But in the second race, which was in China, he kind of had a rookie's race. Now in the sprint race, he had an issue, but also in main race, he was kind of, his confidence was down. He's very well spoken to the media. The way he talks, it's really nice and refreshing to hear. But you can see that he needs to go through that learning trajectory of getting used to a Formula One car, getting used to the pressure, getting used to do so many things, like getting used to being in tune with the rush of a Formula One Grand Prix weekend, all those things. It's kind of, it's going to take a little bit of time. It happened with Kimi Antonelli. It happened with a lot. The only person it didn't happen with as spectacularly was, I think, Oliver Behrman, but that's because he kind of had two outings already in Formula One, one with Haas, one with Ferrari. So, so Arvid Lindblad needs to take it step by step. Next race is Japan. And I think he's going to do well in that because, Japan is kind of like a driver's circuit. And Arvid Lindblad is like, he looks like a natural. So he's definitely going to perform well. And he's going to have pace in Japan. Hopefully he doesn't get any kind of technical issues or like electrical issues. If he gets in the practice sessions early and well and does good amount of learning in the initial part of the weekend, then he definitely is going to score some points in the 2026 Japanese Grand Prix. So no biggie. We had some problems, ran into some roadblocks. Shit happens. We move on. Alpine. Now, one of the key things that I want to talk about is, first of all, big shout out to Franco Colapinto, the way he drove that race. Nobody is talking about Franco Colapinto's defense against the two charging Haas's. Esteban Ocon was on relatively better tires than Franco Colapinto at the time he was attacking him, and Oliver Behrman was on a fresh set of tires. Now, obviously, the fight between Ocon and Behrman, because, Ocon is a piece of shit teammate, helped Franco Colapinto retain his P4 or P5 position, but he was also defending really well. And this is the Franco we want to see. This is what we are here for when in 2025 he came into Formula One. He initially, he instantly turned heads by scoring back-to-back points. I think it was in Azerbaijan where people really started noticing him. And in 2026, and then for the 2025 season, I think, when he returned into Formula One. In 2024, he turned some heads. Then in 2025, after he replaced Jack 2, and it has just been unimpressive because the car was shit and also there was a lot of pressure. He jumped in mid-season, etc., etc. But the pace was there. And towards the end of 2025, he kind of started closing the gap to Pierre Gasly in qualifying pace. And in 2026, in the second race, he was actually doing a really good job. He was P2 at one point, and yes, the seemingly faster cars overtook him, but Esteban Ocon could never. And is the Alpine faster than the Haas? I don't think so. I think Alpine are slower than Haas. It's just like Esteban Ocon is not as good as Oliver Behrman. That's a fact. And it's not because I'm biased against Esteban. But Franco Colapinto defended well against Esteban Ocon, absorbed the pressure from him, and then from the pits, charging Oliver Bearman with, I think, a fresh set of medium tires. He was attacking Franco as well. Now, the fun thing was the inter-team battle of the Haas, as I mentioned earlier, helped Franco Colapinto, but Franco Colapinto's race overall end-to-end was absolute perfection. Based on how he drove, how he defended against, how he managed his pace, like all those things was so well done. And I'm pretty sure that he's gonna rack up more and more points as the season goes along. Now the thing is, they have a point scoring car. We have seen it. We have seen it in Australia where Pierre Gasly had to work a little bit hard. But we are also seeing this in China where Franco Colapinto, despite having that crash with Esteban, had scored some points. So that's a really good positive sign going into the future for Alpine. I guess not developing their car in 2025 has paid off in the sense that now they're a consistent point scoring team. But if they manage to unlock good pace, reliable pace so early on in the season, only God knows the limits, the true limits of their technology. And also don't forget that they have the maximum amount of aerodynamic allocated time because they were the shittiest last season. So because of that, they have the maximum amount of aerodynamic like CFT allocated time, wind tunnel testing time. And that's I mean, I guess we will see in the following races, Japan and Miami. Miami in particular, I'm excited for Miami because there's going to be some serious aero upgrades up and down the grid. Maybe not engine, that takes time to develop, but aero upgrades, transmission, gearbox upgrades, things like that. Better energy management. Like I think in the software, people will find more performance. I think the fine tuning will be better because that can be done like with the simulations in the simulator to a certain degree, but I guess we will see in time. And I'm excited for Alpine's growth trajectory through the season. Williams should learn from them, is what I'm trying to say. We move on. And big shout out to Pierre Gasly, the Max Verstappen of that team. We move on to Haas. So the first thing to say about Haas is that Esteban Ocon is not as good as Oliver Bearman. It's very clear because from the start of the season, what I'm noticing is that Oliver Bearman is just complimenting the team on what an amazing car they have built and how the car is giving him a good feel, a good read, and how he is able to just take that and extract the maximum performance out of it with ease. And he's demonstrating that on track. And he has scored points in every competitive session where you could score points. He scored points in Australia, scored points in China Sprint, scored points, massive amount of points, P5, 10 points, in the main Grand Prix of China. Now, Esteban Ocon, on the other hand, he complained in Australia that he couldn't find the right balance, the right rhythm, and it was unstable. And Oliver got lucky because his car has only a little bit of understeer. My car was completely unstable. He complained about that in Australia. The similar-esque, like his interviews rhymed all the way to the Chinese Grand Prix main race. Because in main race, we could visibly see that he was good. But because it is Esteban Ocon, his driving skills are not as good as Oliver Bearman, obviously. He crashed into a rookie. I mean, that's insane, man. Look, if you have been in Formula 1 for like way more than a decade and a half, and you're crashing into rookies, man. And Franco Colapinto really had a very difficult upbringing because he was in Alpine, which is the back of the field. He was there and he didn't have anything. He's just a young kid who had to prove himself. He didn't have the privilege to sit around and complain like you do, Esteban. So Franco worked his ass off to get into like where he is today, competitive car, and he got that damage from you. And fortunately, he went ahead and scored some points. 1 point. No thanks to you. So Esteban Ocon, not as good as like of a driver. He is still complaining. And after the Chinese Grand Prix race, one of the admirable things I guess about Esteban, good character though. Piece of shit driver as a teammate, not that good skills, but good character. He put his hand up, like accepted his fault, got the penalty, accepted it, and he's like, like, I'm happy that Franco at least went ahead and scored a point. He deserved more, which is absolutely true. But fortunately, we are seeing now Oliver Behrman smoking the shit out of Esteban Ocon. But more importantly, Oliver Behrman performing like Oliver Behrman. Like that's the most important thing we are trying to see, and he is definitely a superstar. The next generation of drivers we are now seeing who are like the championship materials is Kimi Antonelli. Definitely, he needs a little bit of polishing. He kind of made a mistake in China where he locked up and went wide. You cannot do that when you're locked in a close championship fight. You cannot have those moments. Even if the grip of the tire is going, you should sense that and you should brake appropriately. You should drive the car appropriately to not have those type of moments. If you need to take a particular corner slowly, you need to do that. But Kimi Antonelli definitely will be challenging Oliver Behrman for a championship in the future. Apart from these two guys, I definitely think it's going to be Isaac Hadjar. He is now demonstrating good performance as well, and also Arvid Lindblad. We will see how things pan out in the future, but Oliver Behrman is definitely looking like the future of Ferrari and also a future world champion, dare I say. And the amount of penalty points he has, I think he has the most amount of penalty points of all of the drivers in the 2026 grid, which also shows how much of a risk taker he is. Is all I'm trying to say. If he is willing to go and take so many risks and score points after points, then these are the types of drivers who become world champions. So he's definitely going to become a world champion. I think I will start cheering for him when he gets into one of the top 10. We move on. Ferrari. They're clearly the second fastest team, and they clearly have a lot of work to do, but these guys deserve all the standing ovation in the world for entertaining us throughout the Chinese Grand Prix weekend. In the sprint race, Lewis Hamilton, stealing the lead from George Russell, fighting against him, then, losing the grip of his tires only to be hunted down by Charles Leclerc. This was really smart move by Charles Leclerc in the 2026 Chinese sprint, because Charles was watching Lewis and Russell battle each other, and Charles knew that in his heart of hearts that eventually Russell is going to win because the Mercedes is just so quick, and Ferrari's Lewis Hamilton will eventually lose his tires and drop back, and then he will be a sitting duck for me. This is what Charles Leclerc understood in the earlier stages of the sprint race, and Lewis Hamilton took notes. Lewis is like, you know what? I'm not gonna fight the Mercedes so hard because they're so quicker than me that if I fight hard against them, I'm gonna lose out to you. And he applied those lessons in the main race, and because of that, even though he was having good starts, he was deploying his energy in a much more wiser way. He was certainly not being too generous with fighting the Mercedes. He kind of let George Russell go when the straight came out. He didn't fight back. He didn't try extremely hard to brake late in order to try to regain the position again and again continue the tussle for one lap. He didn't do that in the main race. He did that in the sprint. Russell will overtake, and then Lewis Hamilton will again switch back up, put some move in and get the position back, ultimately destroying his tires much more quickly. In the main race, he didn't. He drove like the old Lewis. And big shout out to Lewis Hamilton for getting his first podium with Ferrari after a 1 year of hiatus from the top 3 steps of the podium. And fortunately, we are now seeing a charged Lewis Hamilton, an energetic Lewis Hamilton, who is positive that Ferrari can continue to develop the car in the sense that they will have a much more competitive package in the future races. Now, it is easier said than done because Mercedes engine have the compression ratio thing going on, and their engine by default produces more energy, and they have also optimized the program. So Ferrari definitely needs to push in all angles. They need to optimize their power management program better. They need to find some better, like system integration methodologies to make sure that the 50-50 power split difference between the ICE and the battery pack is managed well. So that's the first easy way, and not easy, but the first relatively easier way to gain some performance. And the second thing they definitely need it, is an engine upgrade. They need, and not a small one. They need to, redesign some core components of the engine. And the thing is, if you design one part of the engine, you have to redesign 3 other parts of the engine. It's kind of like everything is connected to everything. But they definitely need an engine upgrade. Without an engine upgrade, they cannot keep up with Mercedes power. They're just too quick in the straights. Their engine is too efficient. It charges their battery pack much more better and much more effectively than Ferrari. But the Ferrari has some good advantages. The first advantage these two guys have is that race start. At the start of the race, they can give they can have more battery charge, compared to others around them, that they can just instantly deploy and get ahead. That's the first thing. The second thing that they are really good at is warming up their tires. We saw that in the restart with the initial part of the Haas stint, like when Lance Stroll, the greatest of all time, retired from the 2026 Chinese Grand Prix. The top 4 pitted, among others, but the top 4 pitted. And then Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton's tires were just switched on instantly. George Russell was struggling for grip. So that's an area of weakness that Mercedes have that they can exploit. Like in a race, if there is a late safety car and like everybody pits and then the field is bunched back up together, then the Ferraris will warm up their tires much more faster. They will have the saved battery relatively more compared to Mercedes. They're good at the starts and the launches. If there's a late safety car, it may work out for these two guys, especially on a track like Monaco. Not in Monaco, because Monaco is shit, but like a track in which the Hungaroring, I guess, the Hungarian Grand Prix Budapest. In those type of circuits, if there's a late safety car, 3-4 laps to go, there's only we will get last 2-3 laps of racing. I think for 2 to 3 laps these motherfuckers can hold Mercedes back. I think that can happen, because the Mercedes takes a couple of laps to warm up their tires, and then also to close the distance to the Ferraris they're going to take a couple more, and then passing is fairly simple for them because they just have the amazing straight line speed advantage and the power advantage. But Mercedes definitely will fall victim to Ferrari, if there's a late safety car. Now, like I said, Ferrari can become competitive again. They have 2 best drivers. They're giving us amazing entertainment. Give them a medal just for that. But if they bring some nice engine upgrades, the power unit upgrades, then we can definitely see them battling way ahead up in front and stealing wins consistently from the Mercedes drivers. I guess we will see after the first 10 races of this season. If until then they don't have an engine upgrade, then we have to wait for next year. It is what it is. We move on. So first, big congratulations to Kimi Antonelli for getting his maiden win in Formula 1. First of many, obviously. I guess this gives us some hope in the sense that there will be a silver war. If George Russell gets not fucked up, but caught up among the battle of the Ferraris, and Kimi Antonelli is on pole, then Kimi Antonelli is going to continue to win. It's not like the Ferraris may not be directly in the title fight again at this stage of the season, where the Mercedes have a clear, huge pace advantage. But the Ferraris will definitely play a role in deciding who, George Russell or Kimi Antonelli, become the world champion. The way they will do that is because they will just fight among each other, and one of these motherfuckers will get caught out. In the 2026 Chinese Grand Prix, we saw that George Russell got caught up in between the Ferrari battle, and he lost a lot of time. This just allowed Kimi Antonelli to just fly away. And after that, it's just going to be very difficult on behalf of George Russell or anybody to close down the gap, because you're going to destroy the tires, and by the time you catch them, you won't have enough grip to pass them. So the Ferraris did play a role in Kimi Antonelli's victory today. A lot of people may not agree with that statement, but they definitely slowed Russell down in his pursuit of Kimi Antonelli. I think Russell is a better and more experienced and more polished race car driver. Kimi Antonelli has a lot of potential, definitely championship level winning. I said that earlier in the video as well, but George Russell is definitely a finished product, much more sharper and faster and robot-like compared to Kimi Antonelli. So he definitely has the upper hand in the Silver War battle. But as we have seen in the 2026 Chinese Grand Prix, the Ferraris squabbling with each other can catch George Russell out. And in those situations, if Kimi Antonelli can fly away, he can win. So I guess we will see how the rest of the title fight between these two drivers unravel in the remainder of the season. Thank you for watching, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.